Chapter 6 Don Tella Finale. Tella's stomach went hollow. The woman was made of things that Tella didn't process. She was older, not by much, just enough to look more like a woman than a girl. She was taller than Tella, too, statuesque, with straight, fiery red hair that fell all the way down to the narrow waist, which was clinched with a black leather corset. Her dress was black as well, silky and slender, with slits down both sides that showed off long legs clad in sheer stockings embroidered with roses. Tella might not have thought much about the stockings, but there were also roses tattooed on the woman's arms, black ones, matching the rose inked on the back of Legend's hand. Tella instantly hated her. She might have hated him too. Roses weren't rare flowers, but she doubted these matching tattoos were a mere coincidence. "Welcome back, Legend." Even the woman's voice was the antithesis of Tella's, slightly raspy and laced with a seductive accent. Tella couldn't place. The woman didn't smile, but when she looked at Legend, she licked her lips, making them deepen to a shade of red that matched her hair. Tella resisted the urge to pick up a snowball and toss it at the woman's face. Was this who Legend visited in his days, while he kept Tella confined in his dreams? Legend had always made it sound as if he was busy with imperiled business when they were awake, but Tella should have known better than to believe him. "It's good to see you, Esmeralda." The tone of Legend's voice chilled her to her blood. When he spoke to Tella, it was deep and low, but often tinged with something teasing. This was more carnal and a little cruel, a voice that didn't know how to play. He used it as easily as the voice he taunted her with in her dreams, and for a cracked moment, Tella couldn't help but wonder if this vicious Legend was apt, or the flirtatious Legend she saw when she slept was a true performance. "We should get out of the cold." The woman slipped her arm around Legend's. Tella waited for him to shift away, to show a hint of discomfort, but it only pulled her closer, touching her easily, when for the last 2 months he hadn't touched Tella. She seethed and shivered as she followed the pair, creeping behind them as they reached a 2-story cottage, bright with fair lights, and fell through the windows and then spilled out from the door. The woman opened it, and they both stepped inside. Tella felt a flare of heat before the door slammed shut, leaving her blanketed and cold once more. She should have left, but apparently she was a masochist, because rather than turning around and saving herself from more torture, she braved the moat of thorny roses surrounding the house, sacrificing the helpless feathers of her skirt as she crouched beneath the closest closet window to eavesdrop. As Legend was having a relationship with someone else, Tella wanted to know everything about it. Maybe this woman was the reason he walked away from her the night in front of the Temple of Stars. Rubbing her hands together to keep herself from turning to ice, Tella lifted her head enough to peek through a frosted window. The cabin looked as warm as a handwritten love letter, with a stone fireplace that took up an entire wall and a forest of candles dangling from the ceiling. The hideaway seemed to be made for a romantic rendezvous, but as Tella spied, she saw no kissing, no embracing. Esmeralda sat on the blazing fireplace hearth, as if it were her throne, while Legend stood before her like a loyal subject. Interesting. Maybe the matching touches didn't mean that Tella thought they meant, but Tella was still troubled. She always imagined that Legend answered to no one except himself, and no matter who this fascinating woman was, Tella didn't like her, and she really didn't like the way Legend stood leaning toward her, head slightly bowed, as he said, "I need your help, Esmeralda. The fates have broken free from the deck of destiny that you imprisoned them in." Blood and saints! Tella ducked down, sucking in cold gasps of air as her back slammed against the icy cottage wall. Suddenly she knew exactly who the young woman was. Before Legend had freed the fates, they had been imprisoned in the deck of destiny by the same witch who left Legend his powers. The witch who Legend was speaking with right now. No wonder he was treating this woman like a queen. Esmeralda was his creator. When she had cast the spell dooming the fates to the guards, she'd taken half their powers and then given them to Legend. When he sought her out, centuries later, Tella didn't actually know much more about the witch, but she wasn't supposed to be so young or so tall and attractive. "I failed to destroy the fates. I'm sorry, but I'm paying the price," Legend said, his voice carrying down through the cracked window above. "My magic has grown much weaker since the moment they were freed. The fates are still asleep for now, but I think they've already taken some of their powers back. I can barely do a simple illusion." Tella resisted the urge to stand and steal another look. Was he telling the truth? If the fates had somehow managed to steal his magic, then it would explain why he vanished so violently from her dreams the other night, and failed to appear last night. Yet, she'd seen him use the glamour in the forest to change his clothes, and he seemed to have no trouble with it. Of course, that was a small illusion, and she hadn't been close enough to touch it. In one of her earlier dreams with Legend, he had explained how his powers worked. He told Tella, magic comes in two forms. Those with powers can usually either manipulate people or manipulate the world, but I can do both and create lifelike glamours that feel far more real than ordinary illusions. I can make it rain, and you wouldn't just see the rain, you feel it soaking your clothes and your skin. You feel it all the way down to your bones if I want you to. It had started raining then inside of her dreams, and when she woken up hours later, her thin nightdress had been speckled with drops of water, and her curls had been soaked, letting her know that her dream wasn't just her imaginings. The real randomness about Legend and that his powers of illusion extended far beyond them. Perhaps Legend was telling the truth about the Fates taking some of his magic, but he wasn't telling the entire truth. Maybe he could still create illusions, but they weren't powerful enough to trick people into believing they were real. Tella thought back to the dead butterfly she found in her hand when she woke up the day before. Now that she really considered it, she'd seen the butterfly, but she hadn't felt it. Its delicate wings hadn't brushed her skin, and as soon as she set it on the nightstand, it had vanished. The Fates shouldn't have any of your magic, the witch bit out, not unless you release them from the cards. I would never do that. Do you think I'm a fool? I've been trying to destroy the deck since the day you made me. Legend's tone was clipped as if it were genuinely offended, but telling you that this was all a lie. A blatant lie to the woman who created him. He had wanted to destroy the cards, but when he'd been given the opportunity he hadn't. He freed the Fates instead, to save Tella. I still want to stop the Fates, Legend went on, but to do it I need to borrow your magic. You can't stop the Fates with magic, said the witch. That's why I told you to destroy the deck of destiny. They're immortals, like you. If you kill a Fate, they will die, but then they'll simply return to life. But they have to possess the weakness. Legend's voice took on that edge once again. A voice for unraveling and stealing. He wanted Esmeralda's magic, and he wanted to know the Fate's fatal weakness. It should have given Tella relief that he was searching for a way to destroy them, but she didn't want the Fates alive either. But a horrible feeling came to life inside of her as she heard the decisive click of Legend's boots. Tella pictured him moving closer to Esmeralda. She clamped her frozen hands into fists, fighting the growing urge to peek through the window to see if he was doing more than closing the distance in order to get the information he wanted. Was he touching the witch? Was he wrapping his arms around her clenched waist, or looking at her the way he sometimes looked at Tella? When Esmeralda spoke once more, her voice had turned seductive again. The Fates that were in prison do have an disadvantage. Their mortality is linked to the Fates who created them, the fallen star. If you kill the fallen star, the Fates he made will change from immortal to ageless. Similar to your performers, they will still have their magic and they will never grow old, but unlike your performers, they will not have cargo to bring them back to life if they die. If you wish to destroy all the Fates, you must first slay the fallen star. How do I do that? Legend asked. I think you already know. The fallen star shares the same weakness as you. The pause that followed was so quiet and still that Tella swore she could hear the snowflakes falling in the roses around her. Twice in a row, the witch had just likened Legend to the fallen star. First, when she mentioned the fallen star Fates and Legend's performers. Now, she just said that Legend shared the same weakness as the fallen star. Does that mean Legend was a Fate? Tella flashed back to something her Nana Anna used to say when she told the story about how Legend came to be. Some would probably call him a villain, others would say his magic makes him closer to a god. People had also called the Fates gods at one point in time. Cruel, capricious, and terrible gods, which was why the witch had trapped them in the cards. Tella shuddered at the thought that Legend might be like them. During the last Caravel, her interactions with Fates like that under the Queen, her handmaidens, and the Prince of Hearts had almost left her dead. She didn't want Legend to be in the same category, but she couldn't deny the fact that Legend was immortal and magical, and that made him something more akin to a Fate than it did to a human. Tella desperately tried to hear what a weakness was, but Legend didn't reveal it with his response. There has to be another way, he said. If there is, you'll have to find it out on your own, or you could remain here with me. The Fates don't know I've come to this world. If you stay, it will be like it was when I taught you how to master your powers, she purred. Actually purred. Tella really did hate her. Black thorns broke the freezing feathers from her skirt as she lost her battle with its restraint and rose from her crouch to peek through the window once again, and this time she wished she hadn't. Legend was on his knees before the witch, and she was running his fingers through his back hair, moving them possessively down his scalp to his neck, as if he belonged to her. I don't know you were so sentimental, said Legend, only when it comes to you. Her fingers knotted in the cravat of his. She tilted his chin toward her. I wish I could stay, Esmeralda, but I can't. I need to go back to destroy the Fates, and I need your powers to do that. He pushed off from his knees just as the witch had been leaning into what looked like a kiss. I only want to borrow them. No one ever wants to just borrow powers. The witch's voice turned biting again, but whether it was because of his request or because he denied the kiss, Tella couldn't tell. Legend must have imagined she had vexed by his denial. He took a step closer, picked up her hand, and brushed a chaste kiss to her knuckles. You made me who I am, Esmeralda. If you can't trust me, no one else can. No one else should trust you, she said, but her rich red lips had finally curved into a smile, the smile of a woman who was saying yes to a man she couldn't resist. Tella knew that smile because she'd given the same one to him before. The witch was giving Legend her powers. Tella should have turned away, should have returned back to her world before Legend caught her there, and he saw her trembling from the cold and from all the feelings that she wished she still didn't have for him, but she remained transfixed. The witch uttered words in a language Tella had never heard as Legend drank blood straight from her wrist. He drank and drank and drank, took and took and took. Legend's cheeks, flesh, and his bronze skin began to glow. While the witch's harsh beauty diminished, her fiercely hair dulled to orange. The black ink in her tattoos faded to gray. By the time Legend lifted his lips from her wrist, Esmeralda sagged against him, as if her limbs had lost their bones. That took more out of me than I expected, she said softly. Can you carry me up to my bedroom? I'm sorry, Legend said, but he didn't sound sorry at all. His voice was cool, with a cynicism to temper it. Then he spoke words too quietly for Tella to hear. The witch lost even more color, her already pale skin turning parchment white. You're joking. Have you ever known me to have a sense of humor? He asked. Then he picked up the witch and slung her over his shoulder with the ease of a young man, checking an item off a list. Tella stumbled backward on half-numb limbs, leaving a small right of raked-up feathers in her wake. She knew that he meant it every time he told her that he was the hero, but a part of her hoped he proved her wrong. Tella wanted to believe that Legend really cared about her and that she was an exception, although she couldn't help but fear that all that belief really meant was that Legend was actually her exception, that her desire for him was a weakness that could destroy her if she didn't conquer it. If Legend was willing to betray the woman who created him, then he was willing to betray anyone. Tella tore through the roses, running from her hiding spot beneath the window back into the forest. She stumbled off the main path into the trees. Only glancing back once, she was safely hidden behind a copse of pines. Legend left the cottage with Esmeralda still slung over his shoulder, and in that moment Legend no longer felt like Tella's enemy or her friend or the boy she used to love. Legend felt like every story she'd never wanted to believe about him.